the furnace is a chemical reactor. The function of it is to take iron oxide and turn it into elemental iron. The way it does that, in our case, is with charcoal as a fuel. Charcoal produces a lot of carbon monoxide when you burn it. And then we catalyze that a little bit with the calcium in the marble. The difference between a blast furnace and a bloomery, it's a reduction reaction, if you remember your chemistry class. And you can do that in a bloomery, that same reduction reaction, but the metal never becomes molten. In a blast furnace, we actually are liquefying the metal. And now the impurities are floating to the top, and we can skim them off. We did some X-ray fluorescence analysis of things some years back at Beckley. Pretty much every pig that we could lay our hands on that we analyzed was 2 nines pure, by which I mean it was 99.99% iron. So that's pretty good purity for artisans in the 1800s working out on the shore of the Blackberry River. You're never going to get that from a bloomery. So now you've got a much purer product. So that's what the incentive for the blast furnace is. Not only that, but in a bloomery you can only make wrought objects. You have to hammer them out. You got to be forged. When we go to the blast furnace with the liquid, now we can make castings. And that's a big advantage. There's a whole world of things we can make now because we can cast. And we also get a lot more iron in a day out of a blast furnace than we do out of a bloomery. 600 pounds of iron is a pretty good deal for a bloomery. And we're getting a lot more than that. And we're getting iron in tons from a blast furnace in a day. In this part of the country, we made cast iron freight car wheels by the thousands. Frequently, the casting operation occurred right at the furnace. That was not true at Beckley. Barnum and Richardson centralized their foundry in Lime Rock, so they sent the ingots down there, but they didn't make any end product at Beckley. The Barnum family kind of lost interest in the family business. They got into Wall Street and found out it was a lot more fun to do things on Wall Street than it was to make iron and cannon. And they didn't innovate. They innovated in sort of a random way. I mean, they had a very innovative casting technique for making the car wheels, but their furnaces were 30 years out of date. And they hired a consultant right around the World War I era, and he wrote a very nice report, a scathing report. There's some question. Wallace didn't trust it. Wallace didn't trust this guy, thought he was a crook. The story that Wallace tells is this consultant that they hired swiped some plans from a furnace in the Midwest, Michigan, he claimed. And there was a lawsuit that really put B&R behind the 8 ball. First of all, their business was dying. Cast iron car wheels were about to be outlawed because while B&R's car wheels worked just fine, nobody else's did, and they were dangerous. And cast steel was replacing them because Pittsburgh is really roaring with steel. We can make cast steel wheels now. We don't need cast iron, so that market was drying up. But they still were selling iron around World War I. But the car wheel business was going. We could see that happening. B&R is banking iron along Lower Road. They're sitting there with all this iron just piled up. World War I breaks out and they sell every pound of it and do fabulously well. But on the heels of that comes another downturn, which puts an end to it. A lot of the iron companies in this area had already started to wane. Prior to that, we see a lot of them disappearing in the 1890s. And so the industry was on its way out probably around the turn of the century, but it was a slower decline for B&R because of World War I. But then it kind of came to an abrupt end. And one of the big blunders that really helped seal their fate was fuel. Charcoal is a renewable resource. That's the good news. The bad news is they did not have enough reserved land to feed all the furnaces. And so they were bringing in charcoal or wood from as far away as Michigan. Well, that drives up your cost. Consultant tells them, what you need to do is you need to build one more plant than you need to keep your business running. So build 3, use 2. That way you've always got an extra plant. And you can take one out of service for repairs or, they built 1. So they've got a shortfall here in their chemical plant. And we have blast furnaces in Pennsylvania that are turning out 4 or 5 times the amount at the same, at a lower cost. Even if it was the same cost, it wouldn't be. But they're actually beating the cost and producing higher volumes. You just don't have a business. And they didn't. And 1923, game over.